Welcome to The Way Home with Laura Smith, the show that brings you wonderful guests, helpful advice, and uplifting stories. The Way Home. Live inspired. Here's your host, Laura Smith.
Well, this is a topic that is dear to my heart, and that's not the only reason I'm doing it. There's a lot of women who listen to this radio station, and even though, you know, we used to say that this was the talk format is usually more geared towards men, we are finding that so many women love this format and are listening. And so we have somebody that wants to speak to the heart of women today, women who are looking for their significant other, their soulmate, or just someone to date. And my guest is Lena Ehrenberg. She helps women figure out who to date. And we're so happy to have you on The Way Home today. Thank you for joining us all the way from Los Angeles.
Thank you so much, Laura. This is wonderful. I really appreciate all you do for your community, and I'm happy to be able to speak to your audience today. Thank you.
Well, it's interesting to me because I know women of every single age that are looking for somebody great to date. And would you say, though, that for the men that are tuned in right now, that if they are single and they are looking for the right one to date, would some of the rules and laws or whatever it is that you're going to enlighten us with, do they work for men as well, do you think?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There are definitely principles of dating that I really subscribe to, and it's how I work with all of my clients. And most of my clients talk to me about wanting to learn how to present themselves authentically. And I absolutely think that's a conversation that is worthy for men and for women to talk about.
For sure. And so for me, it's an interesting process because I don't have much of a process right now. That's my process. I really am not dating. I am open to it, though. For the first time in a long time, I spent the last 5 years moving my life from New York to the Midwest and buying a new house, getting a new job, taking care of my parents, not taking care of, but, you know, being closer to them geographically so that I could be with them all the time and enjoy them. You know, my whole life was really focused on that. But I found myself recently waking up and going, oh, I think I could date. I think I'm ready. And it kind of struck me that it sort of came out of the blue like that, but it did. And then part of me thought, well, where do I even start? And before I say another thing further, I know there's a lot of people who still find people to date online. I am not someone that typically wants to go that route. Are you someone that gives advice for people open to all different scenarios?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I will tell you, okay, so I'm in Los Angeles, and there is a lot of conversation around the Los Angeles meet cute, right? How are people actually meeting outside of online? So I will tell you that I have been asked out on dates at the gas station. I have been asked out on dates, on a date by a man I met walking through the parking lot as I was leaving the farmer's market one morning. And here's the ultimate Los Angeles meet cute. I went on a date with a man who asked me out literally in traffic. We were not going at a high speed. I do not want anyone to...
No, you were stuck on the freeway in LA.
Well, I was stuck on the freeway, exactly. Well, I was actually trying to merge onto a major road, and I was coming from a smaller road, and I did the thing we do, which is I rolled down my window and I kind of waved to the man in the SUV, and I motioned, "Can I get in front of you?" And he rolled down his window and he yelled out at me, "Give me your number." And
wow.
I thought I misunderstood him. I said, "What?" And he said, "Give me your number and I'll let you in ahead of me." And I was like, "What are you going to write it down? What's happening?" He said, "Give me your number." So I was like, okay. So I yelled my number out there and he stopped so I could, and by the time I got in front of him, he was calling me.
No way.
And we chatted and we went on a date.
That is absolutely outrageous. So something tells me here between the gas station, the farmer's market, and, getting onto the highway, We have all of that here in Northern Indiana, and they do in Greenwich, Connecticut, where the show is also airing. So, it's not something that's just endemic to LA. So we could do that here, but that's so interesting to me. Do you feel that is this something that just kind of started to ramp up for you once you made a declarative decision? I really feel like I want to date now, or is this something that always happens to you and always has?
It hasn't always in the past, and it does happen much more frequently over the past few years, I would say. I think that it started to happen when I became open to the possibility. It has started to happen when I'm going to be super honest. There's a lot of conversation out in the world about there are no good men around here and it's really hard to date in this city, or I'm not in a city, so it's really hard to date here, or, I know everybody in this town and all of the things. And when I decided that that didn't have to be true for me, and I decided to go out into the world with more of a vacation mindset.
Oh, I love that.
Because think about what we do on vacation. We are open and we're curious and we're there to have fun. And a lot of us have stopped having fun dating. And I'm all about that. That's the other thing I always talk about with my clients. So you're going to learn all of these things. You're going to learn all these ways to meet people who are really quality matches for you. And you're going to figure all of this out. And the bonus is you're going to have fun dating because it's a social activity. We all ought to have fun. Even if this is not my person forever, I think this could be a really fun evening, or even if it's an hour, even if it's let's meet for a cup of coffee, or let's meet for a walk around the lake or something like that, And so I think that could be really helpful to you too. And, going back to speaking to your male listeners, that kind of getting to know someone at the beginning and keeping a first date really casual is really helpful for both people involved, I think.
Yeah. Don't go in there on your very first date and be like envisioning the wedding.
Right.
Unless it just happens kind of spontaneously that like you're talking and you just kind of see yourself with that person. I'm sure I've read that that's happened to some people, the sort of love at first sight kind of thing, which I believe that there is. My guest is Lena Ehrenberg, and we're having so much fun. She helps women figure out how to date, but we're figuring out that some of these principles work for men too. And it is interesting to me because obviously, a woman my age is not going to be maybe looking to date in the same way that somebody my daughter's age, right? So are there different rules for different times of our lives or different ages, or do you that's a big debunk? You don't worry about those things?
I think that there are people who feel a different type of pressure when they're dating, depending on where they're at in their lives and what they want for their lives. But I think, again, that the principles are the same and that we all want to meet a partner who is respectful and loving and kind and a good person and shares our values and shares our vision for our lives. And we also want to be that person, don't we? I mean, I know that you do. I know that you are that kind of person. And so that kind of bottom line, being a good human and being a really wonderful companion, that transcends all ages, honestly.
Yes, indeed. So, what about the people who think that it has to be super traditional? Like, is it still because I'm just now starting to think about it and get into it. Is it still wait for the guy to ask you, like the guy did who let you in on the highway that day? Do you wait for the man to make the move, or can you make the move?
Well, it's interesting. Have you ever heard the phrase dropping the hanky? This came from, I was probably like the 1800s or late 1800s, when a woman really could not be forward, but a woman could let a man know that she was interested. And I've heard the story that women would literally drop their hanky on the sidewalk so that that man who might have been in their peripheral vision would be a gentleman and pick it up for them and hand it back to her. And it was her opportunity to smile and thank him, and in that way open up the repartee. And so that is absolutely something that women can still do who don't feel comfortable necessarily with actually asking the question, asking for the date. And yet, again, going back to apps, because there might be some of your listeners who might be interested in using apps or dating sites, but there are apps that are constructed so that the women need to take the first move and let a man know that she is interested in him.
Yes.
It doesn't necessarily mean that she has to ask for the date. And if that's something that you're really not comfortable with, absolutely, it goes back to being authentic. It goes back to, the root of your relationship is what's at the root of you. What are your values, and how can you best present yourself and feel secure about yourself? And so it's really important to operate in a way that really feels authentic to you.
Yes, absolutely. Well, that's the one of the great things about getting older and aging is like you do feel more comfortable in your own skin. You do feel more authentic, like you can be yourself, and you're not worried about what people will think. You're more, when you're my age, you're thinking, well, if they like me, that's great. And if they don't, too bad. It's kind of like that, because
Right.
I'm too old to be worried about, trying to please somebody or trying to change my personality to attract somebody. One of my things that I've always said, and my other friends who are also single, we say we would love to meet somebody by having someone introduce us to someone they know. Because that feels a little more reliable than, say, online dating, which they could look like a tall glass of water and all that, and then some, but you really don't know their background, and you might never. It's just the reality of when you do something online. But if somebody who who loves you, who thinks you're awesome, says, "Oh, hey, you know what? I have this great friend, and I know he's single and blah, blah, blah. And I think you guys would hit it off. You both love this, or you both love it." I think that my friends and I always say that's what we would love. We would love it for people around us who love us and know us, would think of us when they're like out and about in their families and their friends, and they see someone who is single that we might be a good fit with. That's like a dream come true. It doesn't happen that often, but I have found myself telling people, hey, by the way, I am interested in dating. If you know any, these are people that I really respect and people that I love to be with. Obviously, I'm assuming their friends or their family would be akin to what they are like. So
Absolutely.
What do you think about that? Is there any reality to that? Have you done any research and found out that maybe people who are introduced almost like, well, not as drastic as in like India, where you're matched by your parents,
Right.
But the so-called introduction, is there good success with that?
Well, I'll tell you my experience. I think that I've been introduced through a friend. I've lived in 3 different states, and I've had friends in 3 different states and all of that. And so I've probably been introduced to people 6 or 7 times in my life. And it was very nice. And I had a nice date. And none of those went past a first date. And I honestly, for me, for my experience, it didn't work out. There are a lot of people for whom it does work out. But again, I think it depends, like you just made the point. Who do your friends know? It really depends. But there are things that you can do to keep yourself safer when you're dating online. And there are things that you can always do to keep yourself safer, even when you're meeting someone through friends or at the farmer's market or wherever it might be, that there are just the basic awareness of doing as much due diligence as you can beforehand to really find out who this person is, and at the very beginning, the first at least 2 or 3 dates, I would always say, arrange your own transportation. You don't want someone to come to your home. You don't want to be getting into a vehicle with someone. You don't want to, not have a way to get back home after your date. And so, and I'm sure that your listeners are really savvy enough to know that just like we would be taking precautions to keep ourselves safe in other areas of our lives, we want to do that when we're dating as well. And, there are also ways that we can protect ourselves online. There are other kinds of situations online that can be unsafe. And so you always want to be aware of your own thinking and how are you presenting in this situation.
Absolutely. I think more than anything, it would be great to sit and just talk to you and get some wonderful tips and all the experience you have. How can people get in touch with you to have sessions with you on how to find the right person to date Lena Ehrenberg? What is a good website or email? How is it? Do you do it over Zoom?
I do it over Zoom. Absolutely. I do. Thank you. Yes. So my website is lenaehrenberg.com. LenaEhrenberg.com. And if you're on Instagram, I am there at Have More Love.
Have More Love. At Have More Love. Well, you are very loving for sure. And I've had you on the show before, but this is a different topic. And I love where it's going. LenaEhrenberg.com. And Ehrenberg again is spelled EHRENBERG. LenaEhrenberg.com. Thank you. And boy, you'll have to come back after maybe I have some good news.
I would love to. I want to hear it.
You're listening to The Way Home with Laura Smith. Once again, here's Laura.
Well, U.S. News and World Report is the global authority in healthcare rankings and ratings. And they have just released this past week the 2025-2026 edition of Best Hospitals. I love this because I think it's really a great service to people. We need to know for our own personal lives, where are the best hospitals, depending on what it is that we're going through, what kind of physical situation we have that has the best outcomes. We want to know the places to go. So I'm really excited to have Chelsea Wen on, the senior health data analyst at U.S. News and World Report. Chelsea, thank you so much.
Hey, Laura, thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, so that's exciting that it came out. And what was the very first reaction? I mean, when some of these studies come out, I would imagine that people even in the industry are kind of waiting to see where their hospital has ranked. And people like me are just waiting to see if anything near them is also on the list. So how does it go when it first drops? Does everybody scurry to find the information?
Yeah, I think we do get a lot of attention from hospitals who are eager to see how they've done in this year's ranking or rating. We get a lot of feedback from them because they, of course, they are the ones who are actually there and providing the services. So we really value the feedback that we get from clinicians and hospital leaders who see our results, they read our results. Sometimes they may think, oh, well, this isn't quite right, and they'll advise us on how to measure something correctly, or they'll be like, wow, this is really great. I'm glad you guys included this measure this year. So it's some really valuable insights.
So what is the criteria for a hospital participating in this? Is it every single hospital in the nation?
Yeah, so we survey hospitals that are serving enough Medicare patients because our data is based on those Medicare insurance claims. So that covers about 70 million inpatient records and 800 million outpatient records. So I think in overall, we evaluated over 4,400 hospitals across 37 areas of care. And this year, I believe we named about 13% of them with a Best Hospitals designation.
Wow, that's terrific. Are you allowed to give maybe some of the top five or the top 10 in the country, or is that something better left to doing one's own research?
We can definitely talk about it. You know, we have our honor roll, which is the top 20 hospitals in the entire nation across all of those areas of care. And, you know, it's a very selective process and, you know, it's only 20 of them. So they're going to be the best of the best. And that includes hospitals like Massachusetts General Hospital in Boston. Of course, we have Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. So those are really great hospitals. But I think what would be more useful for, you know, Americans everywhere is to look at the best regional hospitals. So those are meant to highlight hospitals that are providing really great outcomes across a wide variety of services in your local communities. So you don't have to travel to necessarily the number one hospital. You know, there are plenty of options, I think, for most Americans in the communities that they live where they can go to get really great care.
That's good to know. Is there a way to gauge what their specialties are? Are you able to say, okay, I'm going to have a lung transplant? Like, where would be the closest one to me? Can you do it by geography, or can you do it by topic, or by, you know, issue that someone's having? Can they plug in like, you know, cancer or something like that?
Yeah. So on our website, which is www.usnews.com/hospitals, we have all the lists, but we also have a search function. So as you were saying, you know, if you're looking for, let's say, a hip replacement in Indiana, you can type that into the search bar and it will show you all of the options that are in your area. It'll show you specifically, you know, so we rate hospitals specifically in the procedure or condition. So, you know, this hospital may be rated as high performing in hip replacements, but maybe rated not as well in something like COPD treatment. But to someone who is seeking specifically a hip replacement, you know, they're going to care the most about that at that hospital.
I think that's a fantastic service to have, because really, I mean, you don't know, except for, you know, word of mouth or hearsay or things that, you know, from people with experience. Really, it's hard to know because there are so many different places to go to now, and they have different specialties, I guess. So when the hospitals are designated as such, like, do they fill out a survey about their outcomes, or is there somebody that goes to each hospital and actually works one-on-one with the physicians and to see what's going on there? How do you arrive at all the data that you arrive at?
So the vast majority of the methodology is going to be based on the Medicare insurance claims. So that means that hospitals don't really get a say. They don't have a survey to fill out. We directly take the data from the insurance claims, and in that way, it's a more objective representation of how they're doing. So that is the majority of what makes up the methodology.
That's really great. I remember U.S. News and World reports that they were always on a magazine stand. Are they still a physical magazine, or is it all digital now?
I think it would be pretty hard to find a magazine. I think maybe we do produce a few print copies, but at this point, the majority of the information is going to be online because, that is the most accessible way to get that information out to most people.
Absolutely. Well, is there anything else you would like us to look for and to know about the rankings and the ratings coming out, or that just came out actually this past week, for the best of hospitals in the country? Anything else that we can be looking for that might be helpful to us?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think I would just say that there are a lot of local options available to consumers. You don't have to look specifically at the number one in the state or the number one in the area. If you're looking at a hospital and they're rated as high performing in the procedure or the condition that you're looking at, then it's something that you can trust. It's a data-driven study. We look at millions and millions of claims. So it's something that is a really great starting point for someone who's trying to make a really important healthcare decision.
That's very helpful. If you wouldn't mind giving the website one more time.
Yeah, of course. So the website is www.usnews.com/hospitals. It will have all of the lists. It'll have that search function that we talked about, and it will also have a copy of the methodology. So if you're interested in what exactly goes into the creation of the ratings and rankings, all of that information is available there.
That's fantastic. usnews.com/hospitals. Chelsea Wen, Senior Health Data Analyst at U.S. News and World Report. Thank you so much. This was really helpful.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you all. And thank you all for listening to The Way Home this week and to my wonderful guests. And may you all have a wonderful week that is safe, that's happy, healthy, and full of lots of miracles as well. I'm Laura Smith. See you next time from The Way Home.
Podcasts by Federated Media.